Hey, I'm Rachael,
And I'm Amanda, and this is Beyond a Ballot.
powered by DoorDash. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond a Ballot. I'm Rachael Siegel here without Amanda this week. Amanda is away, and let me tell you, we knew this was going to happen, but I really, truly miss having her on the pod with me. So Amanda, if you're listening, come back. It's very lonely doing these things by yourself. It's always wonderful to have somebody doing them with you. And I'm so even more this week appreciative of my co-host. But hopefully she's having a great trip and she will be back with us next week as we turn our attention away from the craziness of provincial politics that we're seeing in Canada and over to the United States and their election that's coming up in a couple of weeks. So we're going to be spending the next couple of weeks focused on that and hearing from voices in the US. In the last week, we've seen two provincial elections, one in British Columbia, which is shockingly still undecided, and one in New Brunswick, where we saw a massive flip in government. Today, we're diving into the provincial election happening tomorrow. Anyone know what it is? You're right, Saskatchewan. I sat down with Premier Scott Moe and Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck this week to find out from them why they think that their party is the right one to continue or to now lead Saskatchewan forward. But before we get into those conversations, I want to bring in Adam Hunter, CBC Saskatchewan's provincial affairs reporter, to give us the context of what's actually happening in the province. Adam, welcome.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for taking the time in the middle of an election campaign right before E-Day to have this conversation, because our audience is about to hear from both Premier Moe and the Saskatchewan NDP leader Carla Beck. But before we dive into that, I wanted to get your opinion on the grander scheme of things. So for anyone listening that maybe has no context of anything in Saskatchewan, how do we set this up? What are really the big issues going into Election Day tomorrow?
So to set the table for everyone, Saskatchewan has 61 seats in the legislature. The last election, the scoreboard read 48 Sask Party, 13 NDP. And just to keep it simple, there are some changes, some people resigning. But heading into this election, we'll say it was 47 sort of on the Sask Party side, 46-ish, and 14 on the NDP side. So a very similar story. NDP picking up a couple seats in recent by-elections, the Sask Party picking up a seat, but not much change overall with the numbers from 4 years ago. The time is a lot different now, as we have Carla Beck, as you mentioned, as the leader of the NDP, replacing Ryan Miley, who ran in the last election. Right. And the Sask Party has been in power for 17 years here in Saskatchewan. And over the last 3 elections, it hasn't been close. The NDP's picked up 9 seats, 10 seats, and 13 seats, respectively. So it hasn't been that dramatic on election night. And for us reporting on the campaign trail in those elections, the result was pretty much well in hand before we even counted the votes. Right. This time around, it's a little bit different. The climate's a bit different in Saskatchewan. There's been some issues over the last number of months, including, and this is this story across Canada, I think, with healthcare, affordability, and education being the 3 major campaign issues here in Saskatchewan. Also, you could throw public safety in there. And that's what both leaders have been talking about. That's what the parties have been talking about. And that's for the most part what the debate focused on as well prior to the final few days here of the campaign. So that's sort of a table setter. Now, polls are suggesting that the NDP is much more popular and kind of gaining some momentum and taking some votes away from the Saskatchewan Party. The Saskatchewan Party leader, Scott Moe, who I just spoke with before we got on here at an event, said, polls are polls. The only poll that matters is October 28th. They're confident in their vote. They're confident in their turnout. And Carla Beck saying in Prince Albert at a rally that, they're in it to win it and they need people to go out and vote. And they're encouraged by these polls because their traditional support has been in the city centers, so Regina, Saskatoon, and then the smaller centers like Prince Albert and Moose Jaw. But she's saying she's encouraged by their support outside of those centers, including in some bedroom communities and in rural Saskatchewan, where the Sask Party's had a real stranglehold on power, and has won in the last few elections with 80% of the vote, 70% of the vote, et cetera. So similar but different messages from both leaders. And the NDP, I think, is a bit more hopeful for sure than they have been in the past, but they have a big hill to climb because even in the city seats that they are expecting to be competitive in and maybe flipping, they have to make up, 1,000 votes or 1,500 votes or 800 votes. So not in all cases, but in some cases. So the Sask Party built quite a lead going into this election and in the last few elections, and they've have a huge base of support. But the NDP believes there's signs that some of that support is falling away. Just how much, I guess, we're going to have to wait and find out.
Yeah, and just from the national context, I think Scott Moe's popularity has remained quite high until recently. Is that true? He's one of the more popular premiers.
Yeah, he's consistently pulled in 50 to 60%, which may not sound like crazy support, but when you compare it to some other premiers who are in like the 30-20% range, sometimes even lower, he has experienced that level of popularity kind of steady throughout his time as leader since 2018, and that's he was handed the reins from Brad Wall, who was also in that same 50 to 60% range for a lot of the time. But as you mentioned, recent premier polling has shown him take a little bit of a dip, and he's been around for 6 years, and so that might have something to do with it. And as some of the issues that I mentioned that are kind of the top of mind of voters, and the things that have come up throughout the campaign that people may have problems with the government's handling under him of certain files, including healthcare, and in Saskatchewan here, we had a pretty protracted dispute with teachers over a new contract and some striking and some widespread strikes that hadn't happened for here in quite some time, and that was over the last year or so. There's still no settlement there between teachers on a new deal. Nurses are up for a new contract. They held a rally on the steps of the legislature right as the campaign had started, maybe day one or day two. And so there are groups that are, motivated that maybe 4 years ago, this wasn't the same story. But those two kind of worker groups, let's call them, the Nurses Union and the Teachers Federation, are both kind of encouraging their members to vote. And so there are lawn sign campaigns that say vote for public education that the Teachers Federation has put out, and the Saskatchewan University has safe staffing signs. So those are in addition to all the other signs we normally see.
So it must be really a lot of signs in Saskatchewan right now.
Yes.
Okay. People love lawn signs, don't they?
They love it. Yeah. We also have a municipal election this fall in the province. So that comes 2 weeks after. So there's signs everywhere.
Good luck to everybody the day after when you have to go pick up your signs. That's going to be a lot. What are you watching? Are there ridings over here in BC, there was specific ridings and that we're still watching, waiting for results. What is happening in Saskatchewan in terms of key ridings?
So on election night, for a plug for myself, I'll be standing in front of the board. I'm the results guy.
I love it.
So people can tune in and see me do that. But we'll be watching the battlegrounds in the cities. So Regina and Saskatoon, that's where the NDP has all of its seats. So 14 seats are split between the two cities. That's where Carla Beck, she represents Regina Lakeview, which is the constituency right by the legislature. The suburban ridings in Regina and Saskatoon, so kind of on the outsides of the cities where the Sask Party has held those seats pretty consistently for the most part. Those are the ones that I think the NDP is targeting. Those are the ones where the Sask Party is perhaps campaigning the hardest to try and hold on to those areas. And as sort of an offshoot to that, the bedroom communities that are kind of a mix of urban and rural that are right outside of Regina and Saskatoon. So in Regina, it's White City, Capel. In Saskatoon, it would be Martinsville, Blairmore, and Warman. Those sorts of areas that are a mix of urban and rural, or suburban and rural, where, as I said, the Sask Party's experienced a lot of support and success. But the NDP is kind of targeting making inroads there. The other places to watch, and I'll be watching for on election night, are Prince Albert and Moose Jaw. So those are two of the other sort of next biggest centers in Saskatchewan. And Prince Albert has been there's 2 seats there and 2 in Moose Jaw, and there's kind of one seat in each city that's been more safe for the Sask Party, and the other one has flipped back and forth between the NDP and the Sask Party over the last few elections. And if you want to get a sense of where the leaders have been spending their time, Scott Moe was in Prince Albert for 2 days in a row this week. And he was in Moose Jaw earlier today. Carla Beck, on the other hand, did the opposite, was in Moose Jaw and then went to Prince Albert. So I think that tells you that that's where they want to try to get the vote out. They're trying to give their candidates some profile there. So I think the Sask Party is just such strong support in rural Saskatchewan that they're not expected to take a hit in those areas. And, I'll be watching for whether the NDP or some of the third parties. There's one that's started up fairly recently that's sort of center right to the Saskatchewan Party called the Saskatchewan United Party. They're running a slate of candidates, not a full slate, but they're in some different ridings, maybe play spoiler or split votes, things like that. Scott Moe has talked about the dangers of vote splitting. He's mentioned specifically Alberta 2015 as being, a scenario that they don't want played out in Saskatchewan. Now, the United Party doesn't have this is the first election they're running in, so we have no idea what level of support they're going to have. And polling here in Saskatchewan is generally not great, and it's also not great on third parties. So we don't have a sense of what support they may have. But just speaking of polls really quickly, the NDP is shown in some of these polls that they are gaining a lot of ground on the Saskatchewan Party. There's a couple that have suggested that they're perhaps leading, and that I think is being taken with a grain of salt by everyone here that kind of follows it, including the parties, because as I said off the top, it's been such a long time since the NDP has been really competitive that for me, it's believe it when you see it. So we'll see what the election results come out as, but the NDP is definitely using that as some encouragement that they're making some sort of a breakthrough.
So the United Party, they don't hold a seat. They just formed before the election.
So they technically have one seat at dissolution. Nadine Wilson, who was a Saskatchewan Party MLA for Sask Rivers, which is an area just kind of north of Prince Albert, she was kicked out of the caucus for misrepresenting her vaccination status a few years ago. So there was a policy where you had to be vaccinated, and there was some miscommunication, or she, we're not totally clear on what actually went down there. But long story short is she was an independent. This party started up. They recruited her to be their first member. So she wasn't elected as a member of that party, but she sat in there as a representative. She was their leader for a short time. They now have a new leader. His name is John Haremick. And he's running in Lumsden Morse. He ran in a by-election there last year, finished second, distant second to the Sask Party, but it was surprising that, this new party finished second. And so he's running there again. So it's basically a rematch in that area. And that's another one I'll be watching to see Nadine Wilson and Sask Rivers and John Remick and Lumsden Morse. That'll be a good gauge of whether this party is making any sort of noise or a breakthrough in the province.
Wow, that gives me John Rustad and BC Conservative vibes, because he did the same thing and then got to an incredible place last week. We don't know if he's premier yet or not. And then obviously Carla Beck running against Scott Moe. You think about New Brunswick and the first woman ever elected there. So a bunch of parallels to all of the crazy provincial elections we've seen in this country this week.
Yes, it's been a lot. It's been a lot to track, and it's been really interesting. I'm kind of glad we're the third one, because I got to watch the other ones and see what happened, and now we get to sit back and do ours.
Yes, exactly. So you're going to be sitting back and watching tomorrow. Just kidding. You're going to be up at the big electoral map, which I've always wanted to do. That's my dream. If anyone's listening, please ask me to do that map on election night.
Well, you know what? So if you are watching the coverage on CBC News Network, we'll be broadcasting across the country and on all the apps. So your viewers and listeners can check that out.
Yes.
Take a photo and send it to me, and you can see how this head is like shining, whether I got enough makeup on it.
Powder.
So much powder, more powder.
God. Yeah. Well, as the BC results were coming in, I did CBC for election night here in British Columbia, and they were putting so much powder on me because the results were so wild. I was sweating through my makeup. So I don't blame you. Powder is the key to election.
Yeah, that might happen. We'll see.
All right, Adam, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck tomorrow.
I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
And now a word from our title sponsor, DoorDash. Season 2 of Beyond a Ballot is officially powered by DoorDash. Just like we go beyond a ballot, DoorDash goes beyond delivery. DoorDash is committed to helping merchants reach new customers, providing Dashers with flexibility, and by helping everyday Canadians find more time for what matters most. Last week, we highlighted Tanya Muller, owner of Le Gâteau Bake Shop right here in Vancouver, BC, who spoke to us about the importance of supporting women-owned businesses. This week, we head back over to Toronto to hear from Miriam, a proud Dasher who's motivated to be her own boss thanks to the flexibility that DoorDash provides her.
The flexibility is the first thing I like. I'm my own boss. I can schedule myself. You can be a Dasher anytime. You can make people happy. Very important thing for me. That's why I don't want to lose DoorDash.
Premier Scott Moe joins me now. Hello, Premier. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous. Rachael, how are you doing?
I'm good. It is such a pleasure for me to meet you and talk to you, and for our audience to be able to hear from you. Apologies that Amanda's not here. You got me today, but I think we're going to have a really great conversation about some of the things that you're working on and this amazing campaign that's going on in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, first of all, when you do talk to Amanda, tell her that I missed her, and I'll have to come back one day when she's on the show so we can have a discussion as well.
It's a deal. Absolutely. We'll talk to you when you're not in the middle of a campaign as you are right now. I want to start by asking you something that we asked to David Eby and the leaders in British Columbia last week, which is, why should women vote for your party and for you as Premier?
Well, I think first of all, for the same reasons anyone should, is what we're trying to do is create that bright future for all. And really what that is for our children, whether you be a first generation Canadian man or woman, or like myself, our family has been here for a number of generations, or whether you be an Indigenous Canadian living in Saskatchewan. What really is driving the decisions that I'm involved with and our party is making is creating an environment where young people, our children, can choose to live in a Saskatchewan community and maybe even the community where they were raised. And we haven't always been blessed with that opportunity. And so whether you are a woman, a mother, or a father, and have children and hope they won't move too far away, or at least have a choice to stay here, that is what is driving the decisions behind what the Saskatchewan Party does. Is to, our theme this election is to create a strong economy to build that brighter future. Well, that brighter future is for our children, and that brighter future means they can have a job here, a career here, raise a family here, but also ensure that the government has the means to invest in education, healthcare, the services that we need. And that, whether you're a woman or not, that's an opportunity that I think we all hope for our children. And I know my wife and I certainly do.
Okay, so let's talk about you a little bit. Who is Scott Moe?
He is a very boring individual. Very, very boring individual.
You can't be that boring.
Well, and I'm always just a funny story. We'll be out and about. I have the greatest job in the world. I get to meet people that are amazing and doing amazing things in their community, giving back to their community, building things, involved in just utterly unbelievable things. It's how Canada is built. It's how our provinces are built and how our communities are built. So that's what I get to do. And sometimes you'll have someone come, oh, it's so good to meet the Premier. I'm like, it isn't that exciting. It really isn't that exciting. And if just ask my wife, she'll be the first to tell you that it's pretty dull. It's a pretty dull meet and greet when you meet Scott. And so that's that's who I am. First and foremost is I'm the luckiest guy in the world, not because of what I do, but because of my best friend that I got to marry, and have been married to her for over 31 years now. It'll be 32 years this spring. We were married young, and we grew up together in many cases, and that's what makes me the luckiest person in the world, is that she's put up with everything that I've gotten us into over the years. And so she's my best friend, the love of my life, and we've been fortunate to raise two wonderful children that we're very proud of, and thankful for every day that we've had thus far.
Any hobby?
That's who I am.
What about
boring guy?
What about any hobbies? Like, are you a hockey player?
Yeah. In my own mind, quite good. In everyone else's view, fairly slow. And I think either politics or I was going to say politics or the pandemic, it ruined my hockey career because
Oh,
if the Oilers ever needed a slow defenseman that just wasn't really good at anything, but if they ever needed that type of a player, like I was their guy, and I had held out hope for quite some time that I could still get into the draft when I was in my early 40s and maybe even mid 40s. But apparently they missed me back when I was young. The scouts weren't very good, and they obviously missed me.
shoot. Yeah.
So I've had to move on to other things. Yeah, but I love hockey, and it's a great game. We have an annual family hockey game every Christmas where we
Mhm.
rent the ice for a few hours,
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
my nieces and nephews and son it's payback time now because they can all catch me. I'm slower and they're a little bit rough on me. So that's the last tail end of my hockey career. That's the one game a year I get into now, and I don't know how much longer I can take it.
Well, it sounds like I should come to Saskatchewan because I found somebody who can play hockey with me because I'm so slow also. So there you go.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm the guy they bounce it off of now.
exactly. Okay, let's dive into the politics here because the number one question that I get every time I talk about you is what the heck is the Sask Party? For our listeners who are outside of Saskatchewan,
Sure.
can you tell us how you align in the political spectrum and
Right. Well, how it was formed was in 1997. So, what are we, 26 years ago, 27 years ago. And it was really four liberals
Mhm.
and four conservatives that were in the opposition and
Hmm.
started to realize that, we agree on about 80 or 85% of the policies that we're putting forward. There's 15% or so that, we might have some disagreement on, but there's a lot that we agree on. And what we were seeing in Saskatchewan was an NDP party that was winning election after election by splitting the vote between these two
Mm.
center and maybe center right parties. And they just continued to win for years and years. And so four of them on each side came together and became the Saskatchewan Party, formed the Saskatchewan Party, and then became, rather than two opposition parties of four, it became one opposition party of eight.
Mm.
And it has taken some tongue biting over the years and some lip pinching over the years and still does to this day because we have differences in our caucus, probably differences that you would see in any community if you walked up and down and asked various people questions. But we meet on those differences. We talk about them openly within our caucus. And we work together to find a point of consensus that is best for the majority of the people that we feel we represent, and then we move forward on it. And that's really been how we have operated for so many years. We don't agree on everything
Mm.
as a party, but we have the discussion and we respect one another's position, and we come to an agreement on a policy and we move on it.
So, what is your vision for Saskatchewan? Sitting here, tomorrow is election day in Saskatchewan. What do you hope that voters go to the ballot box tomorrow and think about when they think of you?
Opportunity for our children in that next generation. It
Hmm.
is literally why I ran in 2011. It's why I ran for leader in 2017 and ultimately was successful in 2018. And it drives me each and every day in the conversations that I have with my colleagues and colleagues from around the nation and with people in communities. And I'm so very fortunate, as I said, in particular at election time, we get the opportunity to get out and meet so many wonderful, amazing people that are doing utterly unbelievable things in their communities and making their community a better place for people that live there today and for our kids, that next generation that are going to really be the leaders of tomorrow, and in many cases are already getting there. So for me, it's all about opportunity for that next generation. I'm 51 years old today, and my time in the sun is my sun's setting, and
At 51, 50 is the new 30.
yeah, I don't know about it. Sure doesn't feel like the new 30.
Well, you look great.
But you look at the 30 and 35-year-olds today and what they're doing and the information that they get in a day. I mean, it took me a month to figure out what they figure out in literally 5 minutes. And so,
Hmm.
kids today are amazing. They're amazingly capable and smart and dynamic. And When I look at the kids today, I actually think of a conversation I had with my grandfather, who, just to put it in perspective, was born in 1912 and passed away in 1916, and passed away in 2012 at 96 years old. And through my teenage years, he was retired, and I got to visit with him quite a bit. And he was a friend, a really close friend of mine. And I remember him looking at me one day, and he said, "It just amazes me." He says, "When I look at you as a young person, and I just can't even fathom or dream about what you're going to see in your life." He says, "I saw, the ground being plowed with oxen and horses, then steam engines and gasoline, and then thrashing machines came in." And he went on and on. And he said, "Then they put a guy on the moon." He said, "I couldn't believe it." And he said, "Now in the 80s, he says, there's these computer things. He says, this is where I'm losing track." And he said, "This is where you pick up." And what he was describing was the Industrial Revolution. He saw and lived the Industrial Revolution. And you think of what has happened since the 1980s. The first cell phone in Saskatchewan was 88. Everything that has happened since he shared that story with me, it's been so very much. And so when I look at, what I see relative to what he saw, things are moving pretty quick. My children are seeing what I saw in progression throughout my entire life. They're seeing that in literally 6 months.
Yeah.
So I look at my kids and that age group, and I'm in awe with, how they handle so much information available to them and coming at them. And I just have full admiration of the next generation.
So talk to me a little bit about your party's platform in this election and how it goes to support the next generation, the kids in the province.
So really the theme of our platform is, to continue to develop a strong economy in Saskatchewan so that we can create a bright future for all. The strong economy piece is, number one, is to create the opportunity for a career here. And we haven't always had that in Saskatchewan, but we do today, and we want to preserve that and actually increase those opportunities in the future. Then largely what our platform is this particular election time is focused on tax reductions and making life more affordable for everyone. In particular, those that are in maybe the lower income spectrum or starting their career, which would be in the lower income spectrum, and encouraging people to stay here and participate in the industries that are creating wealth for hopefully them and hopefully provide them with the opportunity to raise their family here like they were. And so one kind of unique program we have, it's called the Graduate Retention Program, and really what it is a $20,000 rebate, a tuition rebate, if you stay and work in Saskatchewan. And so it's payable over 7 years to people that stay here, and it comes off your tax roll for the first 7 years that you would be working in here in a post-secondary environment. Our commitment to this election platform is to enhance that by 20%. So it'd be $24,000 for a 4-year degree. And so they're really incentives to, provide not only the job and the career opportunity, but some additional incentives, and using the strength of that economy that we have to provide incentives for people to stay in a community in Saskatchewan. And our hope is that they would, have the opportunity to raise their family here in the same way that they were raised.
Well, I told you my mom is from Saskatchewan, proudly, very proudly. And I tried to go to law school in Saskatchewan, but they wouldn't have me, unfortunately. But I would have stayed there.
That law school in Saskatoon can be picky.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. If they're listening, I'm still willing to go and do another degree there, move back to my roots.
You maybe.
Oh, that'd be great. After you're done being premier.
I'm busy for a bit, I hope. Who knows? On October 28th, that might be free. But if not, we'll find a time.
So you in a previous government sat in cabinet in different portfolios under Brad Wall, who was premier, is one of my political crushes, who I've talked about on the show before. You sat as environment minister and advanced education minister.
That's correct.
What are policies that are big in your heart? Like, which policies are the ones that you've talked about the economy a little bit and the next generation, but are there things? Is it the environment? Is it post-secondary healthcare? What are those things that are really your passion projects?
I love both of those files. And I was in environment and water security agency, and then went over to advanced education, and then back to environment, actually about the time that the federal Liberals were were elected. And so the second time through environment was quite a bit bumpier than the first time because we got into the whole climate carbon tax conversation. And I was our environment minister through that period of time. And so that was a little lumpy and bumpy and a lot of fun, but a little, just a little tougher because it was a lot more arguing, I suppose you would say, than and maybe not as much constructive conversation that I would have preferred to have. But I did love environment, and I actually often refer to it as being without a doubt, the funnest file in government, and the file that really has as much impact on everybody. In particular, and much like British Columbia, Saskatchewan has a beautiful outdoors that we all enjoy, but we're also utilizing that outdoors and the natural resources to create wealth in Saskatchewan. And so you have that balance. I mean, it's an important balance, and I'd say it's a crucial balance. And so I loved it. We also had some other files in there like our conservation officers and get into the hunting quotas, and the forest fire response was located in there. So I was having the time of my life, and if I had to go back, I'd be environment minister today. This job is great, and I love it. But I truly loved being minister of environment. However, advanced education was interesting, and I was a little intimidated going in there because you're going to be dealing with the post-secondary institutes and presidents and professors, and our Sask Polytechnic is our Polytechnic Institute, and SIIT, which is our Indigenous Institute, a little bit with the First Nations University as well, and our regional colleges. And the first thing you think is all of these folks are way smarter than I am, and this is going to be a very intimidating space. But it was great as well, and some of the most not only intelligent but resourceful, impactful people. I met. I'll share one story with you, which
please,
if I have a minute.
We love stories.
There's a Dr. Menendez at the College of Medicine in Saskatoon. He's an amazing guy, just an amazing person, doing a lot of work in remote healthcare and virtual healthcare, and some really impactful work. And he was doing some work, and I'm just going to recall off memory on some stem cell implants into people's brains, and actually regrowing brain cells in.
Wow.
It's cutting edge research, world class. People that maybe had Parkinson's and injuries, brain injuries, and actually trying to regrow brain cells. And this is just how resourceful and common Dr. Menendez was. He told me at the announcement, he said, I needed a needle, and this sounds a little bit gory maybe, and I apologize, but he said it needs to be durable enough to go through bone, but precise enough to place these stem cells exactly where we need them. And he said, who do you think in the world could build that? I said, I have no idea. Well, me neither. So I walked across the campus to the College of Engineering, and they built it for me right there. So he didn't look globally for this, one in a kind instrument that he needed to make his research so very impactful. To just imagine how impactful that research can be of regrowing brain cells using your own stem cells. And but he walked literally about 400 yards to the College of Engineering building and walked into a group of engineers and said, "Can you build me this?" And certainly they did. And I just found those stories absolutely amazing, and just how resourceful those very, very intelligent people were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that speaks to the work that's being done across the province, and how much comes out of Saskatchewan that impacts the rest of the country that people don't even realize is happening out of Saskatchewan. I want to ask.
That's probably not the political story you're looking for, but it's a story that I always found special and amazing.
Well, my mom is Saskatchewan's if you're looking for an ambassador in British Columbia, she's the number one person, because she talks all the time to me about what's coming out of Saskatchewan and how proud she is to be from there. So
we should make it official. We could give her like a lifetime citizenship, and she could be our ambassador to BC.
She'd be so thrilled. She'd be the best.
We'll have to get her contact information and get into negotiations.
Okay, it's a deal. I almost brought her on to be my guest co-host today, but I thought she might fangirl a little bit too much over the Premier of Saskatchewan. So
it's not that special.
But for her it is.
Well, I'll get her my wife's phone number. She'll set her straight. Okay.
2 more questions for you before we wrap up here. First of all, you are potentially the incumbent government tomorrow. What would you say is the biggest accomplishment of your government thus far? And what can you do better if you're given another term tomorrow?
Biggest accomplishment, for sure, is in providing that opportunity for our children and that next generation, and is our population is increasing. We're up 250,000 people since 2007. 50 years prior to that, we hung around about 990,000 people, and really didn't increase. And people are choosing to move here. But here's the statistic that I think is very special. That graduate retention program I mentioned earlier, over 85,000 young people have been the beneficiary of that program. That means they stayed and work in Saskatchewan after their post-secondary training. You add to that everyone else that went into the workforce directly. Our children are staying here today. And people are moving here, yes, but our children are staying here. And I would think that's the most impactful thing for me personally as a parent, but also the most impactful thing for so many parents and grandparents across Saskatchewan. So that's number one, as far as accomplishments go. As far as what can we do better, and this might be true for, I'll speak for our government and individuals in our government. The last half a dozen years have been very difficult for us as individuals, in what we do in our personal lives. Been very difficult, and I would say uncertain for what we do in our careers, and very difficult, I think, as well for any of us that are in any way trying to navigate this uncertain world. Whether it was a pandemic, whether it's some of what we see happening, in the restructuring of supply chains, the cost of not only doing business, but the cost of living, and just things have changed so rapidly, and sometimes without notice, warning, or beyond our wildest expectations in the last few years. And in doing that, I speak just to our government. We've had to make decisions pretty quickly at times, and at times I think we can do a better job listening. And we're trying our best to get back to that. And listening isn't always setting up, structured review panels and all of the things that maybe traditionally people think governments should or could do. But listening is encouraging our government members or our caucus members to really spend time in their community, engaging with the people that they represent, and really be their voice at the caucus table. And I said earlier, we have those very open discussions where, we don't always see things the same way. We have diversity in our caucus. It's important to have those discussions. That's how you get to hopefully what is the best policy point. We don't always, and sometimes we have to back up and change, but we really need to pay attention as things have changed so fast the last half a dozen years, that we don't get ahead of ourselves with our decisions, and that we as elected members, and by elected members I don't mean as a premier or leader or minister, I mean as an MLA, representing the 15 or 17,000 people that I represent in my riding. We really need to do make an extra effort to use our ears and engage with the people that we represent, and remember that we're their voice in caucus, we're their voice in government, and that probably is true for all governments when you look at the last number of years. But I know it's something that we're actively working on, I think, during this campaign, as well as we knock doors and such. But we need to always be cognitive of what it is and who we're representing and who we're speaking for.
Yeah, I think it's an important point across governments, across levels of governments, listening to constituents. I was explaining to my daughter yesterday why we vote. She's 3. And I said, because we are voting to choose the person that's going to make the decisions for us. And that concept, is such a fundamental part of elections and voting, and it's something that governments sometimes lose sight of. So it's great to hear that that's something that your government is actively working on.
It truly matters.
Yeah.
If you can teach your children anything, it truly matters.
Yep, absolutely. I want to end on one final question. What is your beef with the federal government?
You want me to prioritize them?
Yeah.
There's I'll stay fairly high level. I won't get into details on it. But what we've seen too often, and listen, we work with the previous Prime Minister as well, Prime Minister Harper, on some of our international engagement. Our relationship with the Harper government was not also, songs and rainbows either.
Hmm.
There's always going to be differences between the provincial government and the federal government. The significant challenge we have with the federal government today, without getting into specific policies, and I could get into that all day long, but it is simply the effort that they are making all too often to intrude in areas of what are very much provincial jurisdiction without working with the provinces. There is a path through virtually all of these conversations. And again, much like the conversation I spoke about in our caucus, where we might not agree on, and we might not agree on how we're getting to certain places, but we can generally agree on where we're going and the direction we're going. Let's find some middle ground through conversations on how we might be able to work together to get there. There hasn't been enough of that. Maybe there never is between provincial and federal governments, but there certainly hasn't been, and there's been a very much an increased, effort or initiative from the current federal government to really lean into areas that are pretty obvious and legally and constitutionally provincial areas of jurisdiction, and that's been at the root of a lot of the challenges and conversations that we've had with the federal government, and problems, quite frankly, that we've had with the federal government as well. Is you stay in your lane, we'll stay in ours, and we'll get along just fine. And that hasn't been the case, and that's unfortunate, because doesn't lead to a stronger country. And I love this country, and I think it's one of the best countries in the world. I think it is the best country in the world, and it hasn't been as productive of a relationship the last number of years as maybe I would have hoped or would have longed for. We'll see. It looks like there might be a change there. Who knows? There might be a change in Saskatchewan too, and we'll see what the future holds for this. But my advice and hope, and probably advice to myself as well, is maybe after this many years of not getting along as well as we should, maybe everybody should just pause for a moment, reset, and just remember that we're trying to build a stronger nation here together. And let's maybe talk a little bit before we just start stepping on one another's toes.
Yeah. Great advice to end it on. And obviously, Saskatchewan is a very important part of that national conversation. So I want to wish you all the best tomorrow on Election Day. And if elected Premier again, will you come back and tell us everything you love and hate about the carbon tax?
Absolutely. Only if you bring Amanda on, and possibly your mom.
Oh, absolutely. My mom.
Your mom will be on my side.
She absolutely will. No question. I'll bring her to Saskatchewan. She can tape live with you over there.
So this is an exciting month in Canada. We have BC election on the 19th.
Yep.
I believe New Brunswick is it the 21st?
Yep.
And the 28th is Saskatchewan.
Yep.
A week after that, the
US.
first week in November is the U.S. election.
That's right.
And then we all just sit and relax with bated breath until there's a federal election.
And who knows when that could be. We're on standby whenever they decide to make that happen. So it is an exciting time electorally in this country, but also in your province specifically. I want to thank you so much, Premier Scott Moe, for joining us. And we'll talk to you soon.
All the best, Rachael.
The leader of the Saskatchewan NDP, Carla Beck, joins me now. Hi.
Hi, Rachael. It's great to be here with you.
I am so thrilled to have you with us. I keep referencing you in every time I talk about the Saskatchewan election, because a few months ago, maybe it was a month ago, you put out this incredible ad where you were in an entire baseball outfit, and you talked about you really mirrored the relationship of baseball to the relationship of politics and politicians. I'm wondering if you can talk to us a little bit about that and how it kind of encompasses your message in this campaign.
Yeah, it was a fun ad to shoot, and I'm still getting comments about that ad. It was about leaders needing to step up to the plate, and my family has a big history with baseball. It was incredibly important to my life and the life of my family when I was growing up. Our family's in the Baseball Hall of Fame here.
Wow.
And it was a fun ad. I'm going to be honest, when they first pitched this to me, I thought, I don't know. I'm a 50-year-old woman if I want to be on on film hitting balls. But it was a lot of fun, and it certainly caught people's attention. And, stepping up to the plate as a leader, I think is an important message.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that as being a woman, because you are the only woman leader in this race, and our audience is primarily women. So what would your message be to those women on why they should be voting for the Saskatchewan NDP, women specifically?
Yeah. Well, the number one issues that we see in the province right now, the concerns, healthcare, cost of living, education, and rising crime rates. Certainly they impact people right across the province, men and women, rural and urban. But let's take healthcare, for example. There are some very specific ways that women in our province are being failed when it comes to healthcare. Right now, women have the choice between waiting on a wait list and we've heard from women who've faced this choice, that if they waited to get care in Saskatchewan, might see them dying of breast cancer before they're ever treated, or leaving the province to pay out of pocket to receive sometimes what is the very worst news that they're ever going to hear, that they've got cancer, away from their loved ones, away from their families. And I mean, that's just one example. This election is very close. We know that people are looking for change. And that's what we've been focused on. So much of politics has been divisive and about fear. We're putting out a hopeful message that we have a plan. We've heard you. We're not over-promising. In healthcare, these are complex issues, but we've got a plan that's been built with the people of this province, those on the front line, and we're going to start on day one. That's the message, and it's the message that people are really responding to right now.
So tell us about you. Who is Carla Beck?
So I always identify as, people ask me, where are you from, or where's home? And I always say Lang. I haven't lived in my hometown since the 90s when I finished high school. But the roots are very deep. My parents still live out there. In fact, we got out to the fowl supper out there last night, which was a nice treat. Made sure we were back.
Nice campaign treat. Yeah.
So I very much was formed as a farm kid. I was the oldest. So if Dad was having trouble with a cow in the middle of the night, I was the one who got tapped, and I very much loved it. Loved growing up out there. I have a degree in social work. I worked most of my career in working with women and children. I was a children's counselor. I was a medical social worker. And the last job that I had before politics was running a women's shelter. So, I also was a school board trustee. So I didn't always think that I'd end up in politics, but politics or policy and how that impacted people's lives, that's certainly something that I've been interested in for a long time.
Was there a specific issue that when somebody came to you and said, you should be an MLA in this province, you were like, yeah, I really want to work on this specific issue?
Oh, well, I remember when I was first approached about running, I had worked in the hospital. I'd just gone back to the shelter where we'd had 1,000 women and children on our wait list for 2 years. And I was at the school board where we were seeing cuts. So right at that time in our province, there was a lot of messaging about how great things were. We'd just been through a boom. And I wasn't seeing it reflected in the reality of the women and the children that I was working with. And my first reaction wasn't for sure, oh yeah, I'm going to run for politics. It was, why me? Which is the reaction that a lot of women, unfortunately, have when they're first asked. They have a different vision or a version in their head of what politicians are or the skill set that's needed. I'm glad that they were persistent. And, I thought of the experiences that I'd had as running a women's shelter on a school board, working in the community. And I decided, I was either going to go home and pursue some other hobby, or I was going to take it to the next level. And I really, really am glad that I did, because, this is an incredibly important role, and the decisions that we make as politicians matter. And it's important that that voices of those who maybe traditionally haven't been represented are there as well.
So talk to me about the Saskatchewan NDP, because the Sask Party has been in power for a while now in Saskatchewan. What is the Sask NDP, and how do you differentiate yourself or align yourself to somebody like the federal NDP party?
Mm-hmm. Going back generations, as I say to people, this is Saskatchewan. I'm the leader of the Saskatchewan NDP, and on the prairies we do things a bit differently, right? It's always been a party that has been progressive. Leaders. You think of human rights legislation, Medicare. On front after front, this is a province that has punched above its weight. Mm-hmm. It's a province where we still need each other, where we still work together, even across political differences sometimes to get things done. And that's been the history of our party. Our party has been the ones who have not only led in social policy and economic policy, but we've been the ones to balance budgets in this province. People here don't take kindly to their money being wasted. They want to make sure that there's good value for their dollars, and they don't like to have people, blow smoke, as they say. They want to see results, and it's an incredibly connected province. That's where we worked from. That connection, that tradition of Saskatchewan NDP governments. And also that tradition of being a province where people look out for each other. So, and people are looking for that kind of message right now.
So just going back to my initial thought on the fact that the Sask Party has been in power for so long, what are you saying to voters that the Saskatchewan NDP will do better?
Mm-hmm. Focus on the things that matter. Again, I'm going to go back to this probably a few times. I think people are really tired of the hyper divisive politics, the people screaming at each other from Twitter. People can see that they don't have the healthcare they need. People can see it with their own eyes. People can see that at the end of the month, even though they're working as hard or harder than they ever have, that they can't pay their bills. They can see that crime rates are rising across the province, and they certainly can see that their kids aren't getting what they need. They're getting phone calls, parents of kids with special needs to come get their kids early during the day because we simply don't have the supports. And they can see, despite all of the talk about a strong economy, that isn't benefiting a lot of areas of this province, a lot of people in this province.
Yeah, well, that's an absolutely terrible story that you just shared. That threw me. So I want to just go back to who you are, because a lot of our listeners might not have a strong touch point in politics. They may live in an urban center and just really want to know who they should vote for and why. You talked a little bit about your family being part of the Baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah. Is that your favorite sport? What do you do for fun? What's an average non-campaign day for Carla Beck?
Yeah, well, actually, the sport that I was best at was martial arts. So I took karate when I was in school. Yeah, and then taekwondo when I moved to the city. What? Because so that was my thing. I was a decent curler. I always said I played baseball. I could bat, but I wouldn't. I wouldn't ask anyone to find any video of me playing baseball.
We have video of you playing baseball.
Well, that one, yes, the hitting. I got really involved when I got to the city. I was excited about the ways that I could be connected to the community. I've done a lot of volunteering in my life. As a mom, I've worked a lot of jobs. Some of it because we had to work around childcare, and I spent a lot of time in my minivan driving my kids around to different sports. I was taught, and I think a lot of people are like this. My parents would say, if you don't vote, you don't get to complain.
Right.
They certainly encouraged us to speak up. But we also were told, if you're going to complain, you better dig in and do something about it. So it's how I found myself coaching soccer, even though I've never played soccer because my kids needed a coach, you know?
Yeah.
We like being outside. I'm, as I said, a farm kid. I still love to be outside hiking with the dogs, or in theory, kayaking or cross-country skiing. I carry my skis around with me. I haven't had a lot of time recently to do that. But I get my energy from people. I love hearing people's stories. I love, seeing that people are so creative and they really want to be part of it. Sometimes people feel like, oh, my opinion doesn't matter, or, people are wise. They know what's wrong in their lives, but they also have amazing insight into where things could be better. One of the biggest things I would say to your listeners, people self-select out. They think that, oh, I don't really have an opinion of politics. And you hear this on the doors all the time, right? Oh, I don't really know what's going on.
Yep.
And then you get talking to them and
yep.
you see it very, very clearly. In fact, I've learned things from you. I just ask people not to, democracy isn't something that we hand over to experts. It's important for all of us to be involved. Don't select yourself out. Run for the school board. Get involved. Run for provincial politics. Take those things on. There are a lot of people out there, let me tell you, across politics, who don't have that kind of self-doubt, and they unfortunately, don't have those barriers. We need more people who are thoughtful, who want to change things. We need those perspectives in politics as well.
Yeah, I mean, after your long run as Premier, that is the message of Beyond a Ballot. So you can come and be with us across the country, just yelling at women to get involved and not count themselves out. That is such an important message, and it's the foundation of the work that we do. So it's amazing to hear you say that. I want to talk about being leader in a very close election campaign. Mm-hmm. How do you keep your team motivated as the election goes on and on, to that, we'll get over that finish line?
I am so incredibly privileged. If you'll indulge me a story.
Absolutely.
When I was working at the shelter, I had a staff person when I first came in ask, how, as a new manager, how do I encourage you? How do I tell you that you're doing a good job? I'll never forget this answer. She said to me, I appreciate that, but I know how important this work is. And I can tell on my own when I'm doing a good job. I've got a team of self-motivated people right across this province. Yeah. They were comparing pictures of their calluses on their fingers recently in a chat because they're knocking so many doors. Yep. They're motivated. They're motivated not, to see themselves on billboards or leaflets. They're motivated because they want to see better, see change in our province. I've got a whole team of people like that. And really, as a leader, your job is to keep encouraging them, yes, but get out of their way and let them do the hard work that they are so motivated to do. We've got a whole team like that, and it's a privilege.
Absolutely. I think it's amazing when leaders recognize that, when they recognize the power of the full team, especially in politics, because you need the whole team, right, to keep going and building. And if you come into government, you'll need all of those people to help with different ministries and run the province. But speaking of change, I want to just ask you about the BC election that happened last weekend, because that was a really interesting situation for the NDP there. But I'm specifically wondering if that impacted you as a leader of an NDP party. In British Columbia, we saw a very tight outcome. We're hoping any day now to get a final result, but David Eby not given the mandate that was expected. How did that make you feel as somebody in the race right now?
One of the biggest things coming out of the BC election, an election where we've got so many ridings that are too close to call, 25 votes in some areas. the importance for people who are looking for change, for people who aren't happy with what's going on, to get out and vote. I think it just has given us more motivation to find all of those people out there, to make a plan to vote, to encourage people in places where we really haven't seen close races in recent years. That this time we're that close. There is changes possible. Your vote matters. That's been very motivating. And not just your vote. Go talk to your cousins. Go talk to your neighbors. Go talk to the people that you know at the school ground that you're hanging out having coffee with in the morning. Tell them it's important, it's close, and your vote matters.
Okay, so on that note, we are here talking the day before voters in Saskatchewan go to the polls. What is your message that you want voters, as they go to vote, to carry with them about the Saskatchewan NDP?
We know people are looking for change. We know people in this province deserve better. We've got a plan to hit the ground running on day one to address the things that are most important to Saskatchewan people. There is opportunity in every corner of this province. We have a government that's leaving too much of that on the table, leaving too many people in our province behind. You don't have to vote out of fear and division. We have a real choice. We have that change is on the offer in this election. We can improve healthcare. We can deliver cost of living relief. We can ensure that our kids get what they need in our schools. This is a team that knows who they work for, that wants to deliver better for Saskatchewan people, and your vote counts. Please get out and vote.
Please get out and vote. Okay. Any final thoughts on the eve of the campaign that you want to take with you? What will you remember from this campaign the most?
My dad just said this to me last night when we were out at home. Mm-hmm. Never forget what a privilege it is to do what we get to do. Not everyone gets to run for office. Not everyone gets to go across the whole province and talk to people and just really fall completely in love with the province again. This, regardless of what happens, and don't get me wrong, I intend to win this election, but regardless of what happens, this is an incredible privilege to get to lead this party and to get to work on behalf of the people of this province. I think they deserve better, and I hope, as I've often said, it would be the honor of this farm kid's life if I got to serve as Premier.
Oh, I just got chills. That's so nice. Okay, well, the polls are open tomorrow, and like Carla Beck said, get out and vote, and we'll wait and see what happens. Maybe it'll be, who knows if we'll have your results before British Columbia. We have no idea, but hopefully you have a much easier time there. I want to wish you the absolute best of luck tomorrow and all of your candidates. I will be watching from British Columbia, very interested in what the result will be. So thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you, Rachael. And I just want to say thank you to you. This is so important to encourage women to demystify the political process. The only one piece of advice, it's all good. Stay out of the comments and you'll be fine.
That's right. That's exactly it. Turn off your comments and it's a whole different world. I couldn't agree more. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rachael.
Thank you for listening. New episodes air every Friday.
Subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram and find us at beyondaballot.com.